traditionally. Creating a healthy learning environment, and I just quickly go through, the Bill Cala points as to the healthy learning environment. All students can learn well, the value of dignity, functional skills focus, problem-solving, decision-making, communication, accountability, being a self-directed learner instead of a teacher-directed learner, and showing a concern for others, of which school personnel need to model all the time. That's what I mean by creating a healthy learning environment. Students have to own their learning. That means that students have a say in what they learn. Do students right now have a say? Do they get to weigh in on what they're taught? They don't. Again, this again brings us to context and what's important. Do we want to have children become the best that they can be and self-discover? You're not going to do that if it's other-directed. Students have to own their own learning and have a say about it. That means there has to be some flexibility in the curriculum. Relationship building. Again, I said these are in no particular order. This is number one. Students will know immediately if their teacher doesn't love them. You as teachers must love your children, and if you don't love your children, they will not learn, and they will not. You will get reluctant compliance at best. That's what you will get. Relationship building is everything. I did a project several years ago at Fairport. We had a senior sociology class, Read the Big Picture by Dennis Littke, and all the administrators in the book in the school read the book, and the school board members. And every 2 weeks, we discussed 2 chapters at a time. At the end of that project, when we finished the book, I came up with a list of 20 items that students said are the most important things to them in school. This is what school needs to look like. Every one of them had to do with a relationship. The relationship that they had with their teacher, how important their teacher's knowledge of what they do was important, that their teachers need to know them. And if you think that not knowing something personally about your students is unimportant, you're wrong. Kids want you to know about them. They want you to talk to them about their lives. That shows that you care about them. And that is paramount to kids, that relationship building. Social justice. School should be the place where social justice begins and brews. I've had conversations with Jeannie Carlovati from Restorative Justice, and there are some incredible practices with restorative justice that instead of being reactive, we need to be proactive about. And that, my vision with this school is that every child, right from 3 years old, knows how to deal with others and has restorative justice practices embedded in their psyche. Schools need to be one that is safe and one where we know how to, again, that relates to relationships as well, and deal with others. Again, in no particular order, how this whole thing started out was an exercise in how to deconcentrate poverty, how to get fewer, no more than 40% children of poverty into one school, because that's the tipping point. Beyond 40%, the research is pretty clear. When we go beyond 40%, schools start to lose what they lose their production and really become less than good schools. So when you add in all those other things, along with deconcentrating the poverty, you're making learning relevant. It really becomes very powerful. We need to teach kids cultural competence and diversity. Schools that are in the suburbs are not real life. The world is not 93% white. And the schools in the city are not what the world is like. They're not, 95%, the world is not 95% people of color either. It's a school that reflects the world seems to have context and also teaches cultural competence. It's why we got involved in urban suburban in Fairport several years ago, was the whole issue of cultural competence and diversity. It wasn't going to happen with 93% of the students being white, when the kids having no contact with anyone else other than people that look like themselves. There you go, Ellen. Told you it was coming. Some people, I mentioned brain-based learning to some people, and they get nervous about brain-based learning. It's like, okay, and it's not the antithesis of relationships. It has everything to do with relationships. And I was talking to Ellen before. Ellen Weber is sitting here, and I was talking to her before we started, and I went up onto her website today, and she has a blog, and she's talking about cortisol production in the brain and how it disables people. And I've been talking about this for years. How does cortisol get produced? Well, it does get produced. One of the ways it gets produced is if you're a being under stress and fearful. And when you're made to be afraid and you don't have a good environment, you have an unhealthy environment. Now, Ellen was talking about it in the workplace, a workplace environment, and it's the school setting environment is classic for this. If you don't have a warm and inviting relationship, you're biologically shutting people down. So this is an incredibly important issue when dealing with how you construct a school and how you build relationships and deal with your children in the school. Ellen's not alone. This is my favorite. I have an exercise for you. And those of you who have seen parts of this presentation before have to be quiet. But I've done this with an audience of 1,000 people, and it worked. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a passage up. And this is just I think, highlights the importance of understanding brain-based knowledge and learning. And you're going to read the passage. I'm not going to have it up on there very, very long. You're going to quickly read it, and then I'm going to take it off the screen. And then I'm going to ask you the rhetorical question and not have you shout it out, like, what does it mean? And then I'm going to help you with it later. Okay, so quickly read, and you don't have to jot it down, but if you want to jot it down, you could, what you remember. Remember, you're just going to barely be able to finish this passage. I'm going to take it off. Okay. All right, so if you're like me, or like most human beings, you read that and said, what? What is that all about? But I'm going to give you a hint, and it has all to do with what we know about the brain, and it has all to do with what we know about learning, and what we know about context. If things are put in a sensible context, it's like the skies open up, and you understand. That's how important it is for us when we're, the whole thing was like, why are we learning this formula? And that you know why you're learning the formula, other than it's going to be on the math test. And that there's actually some basis in this in life. Okay. Now, what I'm going to do is give you a context clue. And then I'm going to put it up there again for you to read again and see if it makes any sense. The context clue is Columbus. Now read it. It's crystal clear, isn't it? Crystal clear. Lovely metaphors that all make sense, which made no sense before that, except there's always somebody, by the way. There's always a joker out there who reads it the first time, needs no context clue, and knows exactly what it's all about. I did this in an auditorium of 1,000 people, and there was a teacher's aide who immediately, she raised her hand up and said, you know, that's the Nina de Pinta de Santa Maria, you knew the whole thing, you had the whole thing. But, you know, unfortunately, most of us need those context clues in order for life to make sense. Schooling as we know it right now is almost devoid of good context in all areas. And that's what is an important element of this school. Understanding motivation. Now I have Rich Ryan up there in that DC, and Rich is sitting right here. And you know, every time I hear Rich speak, I get inspired about motivation. And motivation has nothing at all to do, we are not motivated by threats. We are not motivated by reprimands. We're not motivated by punishment. We're negatively motivated by a lot of those. We're not motivated by tests. We're not motivated if we're isolated or embarrassed. And those, unfortunately, are a lot of the tools that a lot of people use in order to motivate kids. You know, reprimanding and punishing and isolating, they don't work as motivators. And the whole issue, and a lot of the work that Rich does, is on testing, whether or not testing motivates. And if ever you get a chance to hear Rich talk about this, he's incredibly entertaining, but also very pointed to of the moment we know that we're threatened with the fact that this test counts and you better do well on it, we know that the long-term memory is in serious jeopardy. Again, perhaps has something to do with cortisol production and other issues like that. We get much, you know, I guess, you know, the results of a lot of the stuff that Rich has done is ungraded, and when we're told we're gonna learn this for the sake of learning it because it's really a cool thing, and don't worry about it. We're not going to be tested on it. Let's just talk about it and discuss it, and then a week later or 2 weeks later, you know, they still remember it because you put it into some great context, you put it into their context, and it was meaningful. Rich does a much better job of explaining that than I do, but it's really, really an important element. That motivation has to be something that is not a threat. So those are I'm trying to put together here are these basic concepts of what's been, you know, ruminating in my head about what this school should look like. Should deconcentrate poverty and should have elements of involving students in their own learning, being responsible for their own learning, and having a learning that has a meaningful context. So, who would be involved in the school? Well, again, when I was in the city, we were constantly asked, like, how do you improve the graduation rate? And I said, I'll give 100 studies to you that show that if you want to improve the graduation rate, deal with 3-year-olds, actually deal birth to 5. But if under your aegis of control, if you could deal with pre-K at 3 years old, you got a much better chance of reaching children. So the design would, in my mind, looks like 3-year-olds through grade 12. 50% of the kids coming from the city, 50% of the kids coming from the suburbs. And how do you do that? Well, a blind lottery is the kind of thing, especially for the city. You know, how it would look like for the suburbs, I'm not quite sure about that yet, but the point is that if I'm a parent and I want my kid to have a good education, and I want them to go to a charter school, so I'm sending my kid to a charter school because I think that's going to do a better job. Well, these kids are already advantaged in that school because they have caring parents who want the best for their kids. So you've already creamed, even if it's inadvertent. So I'm looking at a blind lottery where I say, hey, Jean-Claude, how about giving me all of the student numbers of the kids in Rochester, and I'll pick 50 kids out for grades, you know, for the 53 and 4-year-olds. And he gives me the student numbers, and I get 50 student numbers. I don't even know who they are. And we contact those 50 parents and invite them to come to the school. Well, yeah, but my kid's special ed, that's okay. Yeah, but my kid's ELL, that's okay. Yeah, but my kid was in jail, that's okay. That's avoiding the issue of, the whole issue of creaming. And if we're going to make a difference, you have to build a school that actually does do better for all kids, not just some of the kids. That's the theory behind that. You know, suburban kids, if you read in the paper, you know, the Ohio State Unit, we've been in contact with them. We're going to visit them in October. They have a metro school at Ohio State University with the Battelle Corporation. The applicants from the suburban schools are 3 times the number of spaces they actually have because of the value of that school's connection to the college and all the other good stuff that they do. We talk, whoever, city or suburban, there'd have to be an interview to say, okay, this is what the school is, and can you handle the school, you know, with the parents to see that you could that you could manage the academic freedom and the academic rigor of the school. So there would be no academic entry criteria other than I want to come to the school and I agree to follow the school rules, which is to work hard and have a good learning experience. So this is this chart that I'll flip on is a chart that I've used for 25 years about how I see a school's organization functioning. If the whole student is at the center, not just the student and how we can do on tests, the whole student is in the center and everything else goes around it. Everything else is everyone else is an equal partner. Teachers, staff, shared decision-making teams, students, support staff, community, superintendent and administrators, everybody, and any other bubble that you could put on. Everyone's at an equal plane, and everybody, as long as everybody cares about kids, that's how the governance of a school should look. Should be no hierarchy. Position, power by position is meaningless. It's power and control are the 2 things that kill everything. Power and control kill every organization. When people are trying to jockey for power and control, the organization's over. It's dead. So unless we have something that is very flat looking, we're not really caring about what we're trying to accomplish, and which in this case is nurturing the whole student. I have another song for you. It's the perfect interlude for it, and this one's by Tom Chapin. Yeah, it's a video, so you at least get to see the guy. I apologize, I don't have a video for Tom Hunter.
Their jobs are at stake. Your score is their score, but don't get all stressed. They never teach anything not on the test. The school board is faced with no child left behind, with rules but no funding. They're caught in the bind. So music and art and the things you love best are not in your school, 'cause they're not on the and as you progress, you'll learn there's a lot that
wish that weren't true, but it is. I've been working on this intensely here since February, and there have been a lot of people who have expressed an interest in saying, "Oh, look, I want to be a part of this, and I want to see what I can do to make this a reality." So we have a lot of people from Nazareth on this list. We have people from all over the city as well, from city schools, from suburban schools. We have suburban superintendents. We have the city superintendent. Some incredibly talented experts in their field as well. But on the bottom, it's almost got cut off. It's like we also are looking for students, because the student input into what this is all about is absolutely critical. And every project of great import in a school needs to involve students. If you want to hire staff, make sure that students are in your interview team. So make sure your students are involved so that they have a say in their education, and that's what we're trying to do here. The thought is in the spring of '09, I had this in the reverse order because we want to talk about, this is probably the order that needs to take place. Maybe this should be the fall of '08, but in order for a lot of this stuff to happen, there are a lot of hurdles that have to be jumped over. The whole concept of the 5 Regency exams, it just isn't going to work. 5 Regency exams, and there's precedent, to not have the Regency exams. You have the consortium schools. School Without Walls doesn't have to take the 5 Regency exams, taking one, or just the English. And so the precedent is there. There are a lot of people who say, "Oh, yeah, it's never going to happen, but you're never going to get them to bend on that." Well, they just agreed to extend that waiver for School Without Walls and the other 18 schools. So that's certainly something that is doable. There may be need for legislative accommodations with regards to funding, how the funding is actually going to work. There are plenty of models that already exist in the state. There's the charter funding model. There's the BOCES model. There's the urban-suburban model, which is unique. There's only one of those in the state, one model like that in the state, but they all exist and they're all doable. It's just a matter of getting over that hurdle. Getting community support for it. It's one of the reasons why we have this forum today, to get the community acclimated to the concept of the whole idea. Getting the college on board with it and make sure that the college is comfortable with it. In my mind, it was this one person's mind that the college and the resources available that are accessible to the kids is really critical for the success of a potential school like this, because there's so much that can be offered, as Tim mentioned in his opening remarks. We want business support, the city schools support, and the suburban districts, and making sure that everyone understands it and is a part of the design, and making sure that it's something that we all see is not only viable but beneficial to kids and any other action team that we need to put together. So we want to do that. And then if you look at the actual nuts and bolts, we want to flesh out the regional school design. I gave you 20 tenets as a starting point. There are certain things that will not be negotiable, but there are a lot of things that would be negotiable, and a group would sit down and determine that. What would the governance structure be like? How would what would the management team of the school look like? What would the board consist of? So all those things have to be determined. I have some pretty good ideas from looking at others, but others may have better ideas about that. Determining a grow-out plan, how do you start it? Do you start from 3-year-olds and then just add one level at a time, 1 year at a time? That would take, I think, 14, 15 years to do that. That's not a real good plan. So there's any number of other ways where, let's start with 3 and 4-year-olds and 7th and 8th grade, and then 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. In 4 years, you got it fleshed out. So a number of ways, but we need everyone's input with that. And then, the frightening thing is the last slide, if all of the obstacles are taken care of in the last slide, then when do you open it? When do you make it happen? Okay, so my role as a chief advocate is to try to make it happen. All right, so and then recommend initial and long-term facilities. Initially, if you want, if everybody, once everybody gets on board, okay, where are we gonna house this? And then short-term, long-term, where are we gonna house it? And any other issue that may come up. Okay, so we're getting near the end, and I do have one piece to show you at the end, which I think sums up the whole deal. But the regional school, like, what's it about? If I could sort of summarize this for kids. It's about racial and economic integration. We have economic apartheid in the city. So it's about making kids global citizens in an integrated world. It's about social justice. It's about democracy in action, letting kids participate in democracy and letting them be a part of asking the question why, solving problems. It's about solving real-world problems instead of placebos and artificial exercises. Okay. It's about developing caring communities and service to others. This is what, again, go back, I mentioned earlier, 3 purposes of public education: to make good people, to make good citizens, and tap the skills of the individuals. These all fit in that box. Developing caring communities and service to others. Caring about the earth and humanity as something that is absolutely critical to our education. Our education should be talking about caring for Earth. And it's about human dignity. It's about relationships. It's about treating people with human dignity and not treating people as objects. It's creating student leaders. We don't want to create, right now we're creating kids that we want kids to be mirror images of ourselves. And that's pretty dangerous. That is extremely dangerous, because if we look at what we've done to the world over the last 50 years, we want kids to do something that is going to be forward thinking and do something different from what we have done in order to save the world. It's about hope. It's about hope for children. It's about hope for society. When kids have hope, they learn. When they lose hope, they don't learn. It's about hope. And it's about a shift. It's about a shift from doing things the way we have been doing them for 100 years. Shifting into something else. Now, last week, this would have been the end of this, by the way, but last week, a friend of mine, Christine Buckley, sent me a video. And I looked at the video, and I played the video, and I played the video again, and I played it again, and I played it again, and it's a trailer for a movie about social justice. And I looked through this video, and I jotted down all of the principles of the regional school, and they were all in there. So I'm going to end this piece with you before we go into questions and answers with this movie trailer on the shift.
Think of humanity and the planet as one organism. Any biological organism, if it's at war with itself, it will die.
The whole world should know that there is no winner in the war. No one will win. We are all losers.
God's heart aches when children behave in ways that are disgraceful.
The way that we live our lives today cannot lead to a tomorrow.
What people can do to these children, it's absolutely unbelievable. We're living at such a critical moment. We don't have another generation to wait.
If we continue business as usual, the Arctic will be ice-free.
More and more people realize that the path that the United States is on right now is not sustainable.
We're the only species that kills its own kind most frequently in the name of God.
You know, there's a lot that needs to happen, and I think everyone senses the extreme urgency.
We have arrived at a moment in our evolution where we have to make a choice.
What does it mean to look in the face of a world that seems to be going rapidly in the wrong direction and say, no, we're going to switch course, and I'm going to make it happen?
From time to time, these evolutionary leaps occur, and it seems like this may be the moment.
There's some shift going on throughout the region, and we're talking everywhere from North Asia to Southeast Asia to India, you know, where there's this sort of movement taking place. There are more organizations forming themselves all over this planet. It's in every country, it's in every economic sector, it's every kind of person, it's in every city, and there's no leader, there's no spokesperson, there's no ideology. It's the biggest movement in human history.
Warren Buffett made a historic gift of more than $30 billion to the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation.
The top goal being going after the health and poverty issues.
We just pledged $3 billion to fight global warming. Please welcome on our satellite, Sir Richard Branson.
Bono, of course, is U2's lead singer and a very well-known leading philanthropist. And their newer initiative is called Product Led, and they have gotten some major companies like Apple, The Gap, and they're all on board to fight AIDS.
This year's Nobel Peace Prize goes to Bangladeshi economist Mohammed Yunus and the Grameen Bank he founded back in 1983. They've lifted millions of people out of poverty, particularly women, through very small loans.
Microcredit financing is estimated to have helped about 17 million people worldwide. One person making a very big difference in this world.
I think we're going through a major transitional period.
I've introduced legislation to create a cabinet-level Department of Peace where we can make compassion part of the understanding of the work of a government.
One day we'll wake up and discover we are family.
The science is coming around and saying, yeah, we're seeing that, and the flow of the universe is unity and coherence, and that we're all connected. Everything's waking up, awakening our connection to something larger than ourselves.
People have made this social change over the eons around the world.
Hope is a beautiful word. Young people in particular have a lot of hope.
Gandhi said, if we're to have true peace in the world, it must begin with the children. The more interconnected we are, the more we can build a global network of young leaders.
You don't need to be elected to be a leader. You don't have to have a Nobel Peace Prize in your hands to be a leader. That leadership is really about serving. The world is going to change. The only question is, how's it going to change? Is it going to go for better or for worse? And that's entirely up to us. You know, sometimes we think about, oh my God, to be an activist, you've got to be a martyr, you've got to suffer, and it's going to be so hard. Hell no, man, I know the coolest cats, yo. People who are conscious, people who are spiritual, people who have vibes, people who can dance, people who can sing, people who are... And I want young people around the world to know that, yeah, making a change, making the world a better place is not only your responsibility, it is your joy, it is your blessing, it's your gift, it's your opportunity to make your life mean something. So take it.
We're going round the bend into new world coming. Keep your mind on it, shine your light on it. Don't give up on it, 'cause you know you want it to. I'm talking about new
Thank you. I wanted to play the credits right to the end because of the people who were involved in that. And that, Joanne and I were blessed in meeting a lot of these people over at the last 2 years in the Clinton Global Initiative, and how powerful that these people are. And hopefully there is a shift, and hopefully we will move beyond thinking of ourselves and thinking of others. And that means thinking of the entire community. With this particular project, it's thinking of the entire community, thinking of all of our children as our children. Whether we live in the suburbs or not, they're our children.